Everyone ignored the old piano in the corner, until Christmas night. Roland Ashford stood by the community center's front doors and said, "That piano's out-of-tune junk taking up floor space, and it's getting hauled off after tonight's event, whether anyone likes it or not." Odessa Marsh stood beside the old upright, one hand resting flat against its scarred wood, keys yellowed with age, a small brass plate on the front worn nearly smooth. Behind her, a few volunteers setting up chairs paused mid-task. This wasn't the end of anything. This was the moment right before that old piano turned the whole town's Christmas night inside out, and nobody in that hall knew it yet. A voice cut in, quick and delighted, the kind that talks over the cold open before it's earned the silence. "They want to haul off the piano on Christmas Eve." Oh, this is about to go sideways for somebody. Odessa had volunteered at that community center for over 20 years, in the same hall her own mother, Corinne Marsh, used to bring her to, for the holiday concerts back when the building still had a coal stove in the corner. Corinne used to point at that same piano every December and say the same thing. "Baby, some things get treated like junk their whole life, just because nobody bothered to look underneath the dust. Don't you be the one who stops looking." Odessa believed her. What nobody at the center knew, not Roland, not the younger volunteers who joked about the piano's cracked ivory, was that Odessa had spent 30 years quietly training as a certified piano restorer and appraiser through an apprenticeship with a regional instrument society, learning to read soundboards and maker's marks the way most people read sheet music. She kept her certification folded in her coat pocket. A volunteer dusting an old piano draws less attention than a woman who can identify a builder's stamp under grime with one glance. The first rung came the moment Odessa asked Roland to wait. Roland announced to the room, loud enough for every volunteer to hear, "We've got someone getting sentimental over scrap wood, while the rest of us are trying to set up a real event." A few people laughed under their breath. The second rung came an hour later. Roland posted a sign taped right to the piano's lid reading, "For disposal," in front of families already arriving for the evening's concert, humiliating Odessa in front of the very audience she'd spent weeks preparing for. The third rung came as the concert was about to start. Roland told the sound crew to skip the piano entirely from the program, cutting the one number Odessa had rehearsed with the children's choir, announcing the change publicly from the stage, without warning her first. The fourth rung came minutes later, the hall packed for Christmas Eve. Roland walked up onto the small stage, grabbed the piano bench, and began sliding the whole instrument toward the side door himself, saying, "This is getting hauled out right now. Program or no program." Casters screeching against the floor in front of 200 seated guests. Off to the side, an elderly usher named Curtis Odom stood near the coat rack, watching the whole thing, saying nothing out loud, his phone propped against a folded table, recording low and steady. Odessa didn't raise her voice. She walked up onto the stage, placed both hands flat on the piano's lid, and stood there, refusing to let it move another inch. A voice broke in again, sharper this time, refusing to let the moment pass quiet. "He's dragging a piano across the stage in front of 200 people on Christmas Eve. Somebody explain that to me." That same evening, a man in the back row stood up. Denise Okafor's colleague, actually her husband, recognized the piano's brass maker's plate from a photograph circulated for months by the State Instrument Preservation Registry, tracking a documented pre-war piano lost from a historic black concert hall that had burned decades earlier. He called Denise Okafor, the registry's lead appraiser, who arrived within the hour, asking first to examine the instrument itself. Roland came around the stage smiling the smile he used for anyone with a clipboard, and said it was just old furniture cluttering up storage, nothing more. Officer Okafor didn't raise her voice. She asked one question: "Where is the volunteer who's been maintaining this piano?" Curtis Odom stepped forward from the coat rack, phone already in hand, and played the footage. Roland's own voice, unmistakable, dragging the instrument across the stage in front of the whole audience, time-stamped minutes earlier. Roland's smile didn't move for a second longer than it should have. Officer Okafor examined the brass plate under a small light and said, "This matches the registry record for a piano documented as lost from the Ellison Street Concert Hall in 1951. This instrument is protected under the state's Historic Instrument Registry, and it was never authorized for disposal." By the following week, the county had opened a formal review of the community center's disposal practices, and Roland's facilities director position was suspended pending that review. The board member who had approved the disposal order without checking the registry was quietly removed from the board within the month. Roland was made to stand on that same stage, in front of Officer Okafor, Curtis, and the gathered crowd, and say, "I'm sorry if tonight got out of hand." It was the kind of apology that apologized to no one at all. Odessa asked if she had anything to add, looked at him and said only, "You didn't lose a piano. You just made the state read what it actually was," and sat down at the bench to finish the number Roland had cut from the program. The following Christmas, that same piano sat fully restored at the center of the hall, a small brass registry marker, now mounted beside it identifying its history for anyone who'd never bothered to ask. The restoration grant awarded for its preservation didn't go entirely toward the piano itself. By her own request, part of it was redirected into a youth music scholarship fund in the center's name, the first student already enrolled that fall. Corinne Marsh's photograph sat on the piano's edge the night of that second concert, and Odessa played the same number she'd rehearsed the year before, this time all the way through, in front of a hall that finally understood what it had almost thrown away. A voice closed it out, warm now, no longer sharp. "Look, this one's fiction. All of it, made up front to back. But you know how many real things sit ignored in a corner every year, because nobody bothered to ask why somebody kept protecting them. So here's the actual question. If that piano was sitting in your community hall, would you have asked its story, or let it get hauled out with everything else? Tell me in the comments. Like this if you'd have asked first. Share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And subscribe, because this isn't the last story we're telling.